So, you've just gotten the tax assessment from the LHDNM, Malaysia's Inland Revenue Board, and you're looking at it thinking, hang on, this doesn't seem right at all. Well, if that's you, you're in the right place. We're going to break down the entire official tax appeal process, and we're going to focus in on two super important documents you absolutely have to know about, Form Q and Form N.
All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll talk about your basic right to even make an appeal. Then, we'll dive into the critical first step, which is Form Q. After that, we'll cover the backup plan, Form N, for if you missed the deadline. Then we'll look at what actually happens inside the LHDNM once you've submitted your appeal. And finally, we'll talk about the last resort. By the end of this, you'll have a really clear map of the whole process.
Okay, so you've opened that envelope, you've seen the numbers, and your stomach drops a little. It's definitely a stressful moment, but the very first thing you need to know is that you're not stuck. You have options.
And that feeling right there, that moment you realize you just don't agree with the assessment, whether it's from an audit or something else, that's the official starting line for this entire journey.
And this is, without a doubt, the most important thing to get straight from the get-go. The law is literally on your side here. Section 99 of the Income Tax Act 1967 gives you, the taxpayer, the legal right to appeal an assessment you're not happy with. This isn't them doing you a favor. It's a right that's written into the law.
So, now you know you can appeal. The big question is, how do you actually do it? Well, it all starts with one very specific and, frankly, non-negotiable document.
And here it is, Form Q. You can think of this as your golden ticket for the appeal process. It's not just a letter you write or an email you send. No, it is the prescribed official form. If you want your appeal to be taken seriously, to even be considered valid, it has to be on this form, period.
And you got to be quick about it, because a clock starts ticking the second that notice of assessment is delivered to you. You have exactly 30 days to get your Form Q submitted. This isn't a suggestion, it's a hard deadline. And believe me, missing it makes everything a whole lot more complicated.
And listen, you have to get this form perfect the first time around, because the LHDNM is incredibly strict here. If your Form Q is incomplete, they'll just reject it. And that could easily cause you to miss that 30-day window. So pay close attention, use the right form, be specific about why you're appealing, and, this is the big one, it has to be physically signed by you, the taxpayer, not your agent, not anyone else, and no e-signatures. Oh, and you need to send in 4 copies for every single assessment year you're appealing.
Okay, so what happens if life gets in the way? You know, you're busy, you miss that 30-day deadline, what now? First, don't panic. There is a backup plan, but it means we have to talk about another form.
And this is where you really need to see the difference. Form Q is for when you're on time. Simple. Form N, however, isn't the appeal itself. It's your formal application asking for more time to submit the appeal. See the distinction? With Form N, you're not fighting the tax bill yet, you're fighting the clock.
Let's just walk through this timeline. You get your assessment, and boom, that 30-day timer for Form Q starts. If you miss it, that door closes. But just as it closes, a much, much bigger window opens up. For any assessments from 2020 onwards, you have up to 7 years to file Form N and ask for that extension.
Now, this is a really important point that trips a lot of people up. Just because your Form N gets approved, that does not mean you've won your appeal. Not at all. All it means is that LHDNM is giving you a second chance, a new deadline to submit your actual appeal using, you guessed it, Form Q. It just reopens that first door for you.
All right, so you've done it. You successfully submitted your Form Q. So, what happens now? Well, your file doesn't just go into a dusty cabinet. It actually starts a whole journey through the LHDNM's internal review system.
So this basically maps out the path your appeal takes. First up, the branch that sent you the assessment in the first place gets to review it, and that usually takes about 3 to 6 months. If you can't come to an agreement there, your case gets kicked up to the Dispute Resolution Department, or JRP. They hold their own reviews and might even invite you to a negotiation session to try and find some middle ground. From there, one of two things happens. You either reach an agreement, or the case gets forwarded to the final stage.
So what happens if, after all those internal meetings and back and forth, you and the LHDNM are still at a total stalemate? Well, that's when your case moves on to a formal and, most importantly, an independent hearing.
And this is where you meet the Special Commissioners of Income Tax, or SCIT. Now, the absolute key thing to understand here is that these guys are an independent judicial body. They are not part of the LHMDN. Think of them as a neutral referee.
Their job is to just listen to the arguments from both sides, you and the tax office, and then make a final legally binding decision.
And you know what? The law puts a deadline on the LHTNM too. The Income Tax Act says that if you guys can't reach a deal internally, the LHTNM has a maximum of 12 months from the day they got your Form Q to send your case over to the special commissioners. This is huge because it means your appeal can't get lost in bureaucratic limbo forever.
Okay, I know that was a ton of information, so let's just boil it all down to the absolute must-know points that you need to remember to make sure your appeal is handled right.
So let's recap the big ones. Form Q is your main tool. You've got a critical 30-day window to use it. If you're late, Form N is your lifeline to ask for another shot. Getting the details right is everything. Incomplete forms are a non-starter. You and only you must sign it with a real signature. And last but not least, for your own sanity, keep copies of absolutely everything you send.
Look, dealing with the tax system can feel really overwhelming, but just understanding the process is your first and most powerful step forward. When you know your rights and you know the right way to do things, you're empowered to stand up and challenge a decision that you truly believe is wrong. So the real question is, with everything you know now, are you ready?